Presley's family are fighting hard to keep his iconic mansion Graceland off the real estate market. Its sale was scheduled.
For 47 years, one room inside Graceland remained sealed. When the FBI finally broke through its hidden door, what they discovered changed everything we thought we knew about Elvis Presley. The truth was darker than anyone imagined. Behind the glamour of the king's mansion lay secrets that would leave his family speechless. What started as routine maintenance in January 2025 became the most explosive revelation in music history. The preservation team at Graceland was simply checking the foundation when they heard something that shouldn't exist. An echo behind a basement wall that appeared solid on every blueprint. The architect tapped again. The hollow sound was unmistakable. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed what seemed impossible. There was a concealed chamber that Elvis had hidden from everyone, including his closest friends and family. The Memphis police were called immediately. Within hours, FBI agents arrived at Graceland. This wasn't just about preserving history anymore. This was about uncovering what the king of rock and roll desperately wanted to keep buried forever. If you think that's shocking, subscribe right now, because what comes next will leave you speechless. The agents carefully removed each brick. Behind the false wall, a narrow corridor appeared, barely wide enough for one person. At the end stood a reinforced door with multiple locks that hadn't been touched since Elvis's death in 1977. The metal had rusted, but the seals remained intact. This wasn't a panic room or a storage space. The soundproofing materials covering every surface told a different story. Elvis had built this chamber to contain secrets that could never escape. When they finally broke through, the stale air rushed out like a confession held too long. Flashlights pierced the darkness, revealing something that made even seasoned FBI agents step back. The walls were covered with hundreds of photographs. Some showed Elvis in private moments never meant for public eyes. Others displayed faces that had been violently scratched out, leaving only ghostly outlines of people Elvis wanted to forget or feared would expose him. But the photographs were just the beginning of this nightmare. In the corner sat a filing cabinet that hadn't been opened in decades. Inside, investigators found stacks of letters that would rewrite Elvis's story. These weren't fan letters or business correspondence. They were threats, blackmail attempts, and warnings that had haunted Elvis throughout his career. One letter dated May 16, 1956, matched an existing FBI file. The author, claiming to be a former military intelligence officer, accused Elvis of being a communist sympathizer corrupting American youth. Another letter contained explicit threats against Elvis's mother Gladys, warning that she would pay the price for her son's sins. The most disturbing discovery was a collection of letters from Germany, all connected to Elvis's military service from 1958 to 1960. These documents revealed a scandal the FBI had buried for decades. A man named Lawrence Landau had attempted to blackmail Elvis with fabricated evidence and doctored photographs. The threats became so severe that Army intelligence intervened, paying Landau to disappear and sealing all records of the incident. Elvis had kept every piece of evidence, every threat, every attempt to destroy him. He'd built this chamber as a vault for his paranoia, a physical manifestation of the terror that followed him from Germany to Graceland. The soundproofing wasn't to keep noise in, it was to keep the voices of his tormentors from escaping into his sanctuary. And then investigators found the tapes. Hidden beneath old newspapers was a shoebox containing dozens of cassette recordings. Each tape was labeled with dates and cryptic codes that only Elvis understood. When the FBI's audio specialists played the first tape, they heard something that sent chills through the room. It was Elvis's voice, but not the confident performer the world knew. This was Elvis raw, unfiltered, and terrified. The recordings were audio diaries, some lasting hours. Elvis would speak into the darkness of his hidden chamber, confessing fears he couldn't share with anyone else. In one recording from 1973, his voice cracked as he described feeling watched constantly. He believed his phones were tapped, his movements tracked, his inner circle infiltrated by people who wanted to control or destroy him. He mentioned names, some familiar, others lost to history, people he suspected of betrayal. The most haunting tape was dated August 15, 1977, just one day before his death. Elvis's voice was barely a whisper. He spoke about knowing his time was running out, about secrets that would die with him, about protecting Priscilla and Lisa Marie from truths that could destroy them. He mentioned a safety deposit box at a Memphis bank containing documents that would explain everything. But when investigators checked, the box had been emptied years ago. By whom remains a mystery. But the chamber held more than just paranoid ramblings. Among the tapes, investigators discovered financial records that exposed a web of deception surrounding Elvis's estate. The documents revealed that Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, had stolen millions more than anyone suspected. Parker had secret deals with venues, taking up to 50% of Elvis's earnings instead of the standard 25%. There were contracts Elvis never knew existed, agreements that enslaved him to grueling performance schedules that destroyed his health. One document showed Parker had actually sold Elvis's master recordings to RCA for a fraction of their worth, pocketing a massive finder's fee. Elvis had discovered this betrayal in 1973, but Parker threatened to reveal information about Elvis's prescription medication dependency if he tried to break their contract. The king was trapped by his own manager, forced to perform until his body gave out. The FBI also found evidence of a second blackmail plot, this one from inside Elvis's Memphis Mafia. Someone in his inner circle had been feeding information to tabloids, selling stories about Elvis's private life for cash. Elvis had identified the traitor. The name was circled repeatedly in red ink on multiple documents, but he never confronted them. Instead, he lived his final years knowing someone he trusted was betraying him daily. These revelations shattered the image of Elvis's final years at Graceland. The hidden chamber revealed that Elvis hadn't just struggled with fame and addiction. He'd been fighting a secret war against forces trying to control, exploit, and destroy him. The soundproof room wasn't built from paranoia. It was built from genuine fear. Elvis knew his phones were tapped because he'd found the devices. He knew he was being watched because he'd caught people photographing him through his windows. He knew his mail was being intercepted because letters from certain people never reached him. The FBI's investigation uncovered connections to organized crime figures who had tried to muscle into Elvis's career. There were threats from radical groups who saw Elvis as a symbol of moral decay. There were extortion attempts from people claiming to have compromising photographs from his army days. Elvis had documented everything, creating an archive of persecution that he couldn't share with anyone. But the most explosive discovery was yet to come. At the very back of the chamber, behind a false panel, investigators found a metal box welded shut. Inside was a confession that changed everything. Elvis had written a 20-page letter addressed to Lisa Marie, meant to be opened on her 18th birthday. In it, he detailed the true circumstances surrounding his divorce from Priscilla. The official story of growing apart was a carefully constructed lie. The truth involved threats against Priscilla's life if she didn't leave Graceland. Elvis revealed that a powerful entertainment executive had become obsessed with controlling Elvis's career completely. When Elvis resisted, the executive threatened to harm Priscilla and baby Lisa Marie. The only way to protect them was to let Priscilla go, to make it seem like their love had died naturally. Elvis wrote about watching Priscilla leave with another man, knowing he'd orchestrated it to save her life. Every public appearance with other women, every tabloid story about his romantic life was designed to maintain the illusion and keep his family safe. The letter contained names, dates, and evidence that could still destroy powerful people in the entertainment industry. The FBI immediately classified portions of the discovery, stating that revealing certain details could compromise ongoing investigations. But sources inside the Bureau confirmed that Elvis's letter has already led to the reopening of several cold cases from the 1970s. The truth about Elvis's final day was also hidden in that chamber. Among the audio tapes was a recording made just hours before Elvis's death. His voice was clear, not slurred by medication, as reports had claimed. He spoke about having made peace with his fate, about knowing that morning would bring either freedom or the end. He mentioned a meeting scheduled for that evening, someone coming to Graceland who would finally end his torment. But the visitor's name was mysteriously erased from the tape, leaving only static where the crucial information should be. The FBI cross-referenced this with Graceland's security logs from August 16, 1977. They found discrepancies, visitors who were never officially recorded, gaps in the timeline that couldn't be explained. Someone had been at Graceland that final morning who shouldn't have been there. Someone whose presence was scrubbed from history within hours of Elvis's death. This discovery has forced investigators to reconsider whether Elvis's death was really the accident it appeared to be. The combination of the mysterious visitor, the erased name on the tape, and Elvis's cryptic words about freedom or the end suggest he might have known exactly what was coming. Whether he welcomed it or tried to prevent it remains unclear. But perhaps the most heartbreaking discovery was a series of letters Elvis had written to Lisa Marie but never sent. In these letters, dated throughout 1977, Elvis poured out his soul to his daughter. He explained why he'd seemed distant, why he'd missed so many important moments. He wrote about wanting to be a better father, but being trapped by forces beyond his control. He promised that one day she would understand everything, that the truth would set them all free. One letter, written just a week before his death, contained a prophecy that proved tragically accurate. Elvis wrote that he feared Lisa Marie would inherit not just his talent, but his demons. He worried that the same forces that had destroyed him would target her. He begged her to be stronger than he was, to never let anyone control her the way they'd controlled him. Reading these words now, after Lisa Marie's own tragic death in 2023, adds another layer of sorrow to Elvis's story. The FBI's investigation has also revealed that Priscilla Presley knew about the hidden chamber. She'd discovered its existence in 1973, but kept the secret at Elvis's desperate request. He'd made her promise never to reveal it, fearing what would happen if the wrong people learned about his archive of evidence. For 50 years, Priscilla carried this burden alone, unable to share the truth even with her own daughter. Now, with both Elvis and Lisa Marie gone, Priscilla faces an impossible decision. The FBI has given the family control over what gets released to the public. Some secrets could vindicate Elvis, proving he was more victim than villain in his final years. But other revelations could destroy the legacy he died trying to protect. The chamber has become both a treasure and a curse, offering answers that raise even more questions. The discovery has already triggered a legal battle over Graceland itself. Distant relatives have emerged claiming that the hidden documents prove Elvis intended to leave portions of his estate to other family members. Music industry executives are fighting to suppress certain recordings that could expose criminal activity. The FBI continues to investigate connections between the chamber's contents and unsolved crimes from the 70s. Meanwhile, Graceland's tour guides struggle with what to tell visitors. The hidden chamber has been sealed again, this time by federal order. But its existence has fundamentally changed the Graceland experience. The mansion is no longer just a monument to Elvis's success. It's now recognized as the fortress where he made his last stand against forces trying to destroy him. The FBI's final report, due later this year, promises to reveal additional findings that couldn't be immediately disclosed. Sources suggest these revelations involve other major entertainment figures from Elvis's era, some still alive, who may have played roles in his persecution. The investigation has expanded beyond Memphis, with federal agents examining similar hidden spaces in other properties Elvis owned. The truth is that Elvis Presley spent his final years as a prisoner in his own kingdom. Graceland wasn't just his castle, it was his bunker, his vault, his final attempt to preserve evidence of the conspiracy against him. The king of rock and roll died, surrounded by secrets that are only now coming to light. Every room in Graceland tells a story, but the hidden chamber tells the only story that really mattered. The story of a man who knew too much and paid the ultimate price for it. If this revelation stunned you, share it and subscribe, because the next Elvis Presley secret may be the most shocking yet.